Hi there, it's been a while. In today's video, what I'm going to be kind of talking about is the portfolio that I made just within Figma's prototype. So the masochistic idea was to to kind of package all of these different projects that I kind of did in the past couple of years, and to have like this huge kind of menu and navigation, theming, animations, and all these kind of interesting bits about my, I guess, kind of what I'm capable of and how I can express myself within this entire huge kind of portfolio. So I wanted to make the portfolio itself like another, obviously, kind of the project that can encapsulate all of the things that I did. Why did I decide to kind of do this within Figma is essentially obviously just flexing my prototyping skills and to kind of showcase the possibilities of certain things that could be done, certain animations, transitions, like how to make it really, kind of pop, if that's a word still that's being used. But yeah, essentially, in this video, I'll hopefully go through all of the little bits and all the trials and error, and there were definitely complications and certain things that I very much disliked, and I very much hope that Figma at one point can kind of update the portfolio, the prototyping bits. But yeah, we shall see obviously what the next update is in terms of that. Yeah, this is just a slight intro into everything. I don't know how long this is going to last. Hopefully it won't be too long, as I always kind of say, but yeah, strap in and enjoy, and hopefully you'll learn something. I guess it makes sense to kind of go through the entire prototype and just kind of showcase all the things that I made, and then we'll go to the actual kind of Figma files, and there I can perhaps show it much better on how certain things were kind of made, how I connected certain things, yada yada yada. So here, what kind of made sense is to make this, I guess, greeting page in some way. And I do this a couple of times. It's mostly to mitigate the loading of images and stuff like that. Within Figma Prototype, that's probably the only thing that I still haven't fully kind of realized the workaround, or what can you do with raster images. Like, in terms of loading, it's always just going to be either blank or the quality is going to be very much degraded, and then it loads everything up to 100%. So in this case, if we kind of go Control-Shift-R and kind of reload everything, here I made this little just spinning thing while the actual kind of image actually loads. And yeah, this is kind of the first, I guess, fun thing that I really wanted to. I really wanted everything to just look fun and interesting. So yeah, like, if you can fidget with my head, that's usually a good thing. Also, yeah, obviously, if you use hardware acceleration within any browser that you're actually viewing this, you're definitely going to have a smoother experience. If it's turned off, everything's going to be choppy, but that's usually the case for any type of Figma prototype, essentially. So you kind of have to have it on if you want to enjoy the smoothness of everything that's happening. So yeah, let's go in. This animation I really enjoyed kind of making, where my head goes to a certain spot and then the actual kind of name and the portfolio kind of title kind of scoots down. This is all just smart animate, and it's a lot of just labeling all of the same things, or if in one frame I have the thing that I want to move in the next one, I just copy that same thing and put it outside of the frame, where it's still in the frame, but outside of the actual kind of bounding box for that second frame. And that's how you essentially make all these animations. So even if you do certain things like move in or push in terms of the prototype transitions, and if you check the animate matching layers, essentially you can do certain things like that, which I'll kind of go through with when you actually kind of go inside each and every project and stuff like that. So here, kind of the same widget thing actually works. I guess we can go kind of layout wise. Big navigation, this is just something silly where you can tilt this if you want. It doesn't really matter. The about, email me, this is basically just a mail to link that when you click on it, it opens up a default mail application. My Dribble, Reddit, and this YouTube link, so you can kind of easily navigate through all of these certain bits. Everything is done via links, so obviously if you click on it, it's going to open up in a different tab. So this was something that was really cool that they added within Figma. So this whole portfolio definitely benefits from that feature. So yeah, navigation, just the title for the category, and these are kind of the base categories that I have. So projects that I worked on, some of the old bits that I generally liked and still wanted to kind of present in some way. And this is just a wallpaper pack that I did. You can go to the Gumroad link and download it there. What else? And yeah, for some reason I had this just crazy idea, like obviously this is not necessary, it doesn't impact anything, but I really wanted to be able to maybe switch out the theme. And this was kind of the idea of trying to set a standard for all of the things in terms of like the colors and stuff like that. So like if we kind of switch to a night theme in the same tab, it's just going to load a different prototype from a different page within the same file, and all of it is the same, and just all the colors and stuff like that essentially change, so you get a different theme. Not everything changes, like the base for these controllers, it kind of made sense to keep them kind of similar. Same thing for the keybinds and stuff like that. Obviously this is there to kind of explain to you that you can do certain things with the scaling. You can reset the flow and it goes all the way back to the welcome screen. F is obviously for full screen, or if you obviously have an account, if you want to say something nice or something horrible to me, you can obviously do that as well. But yeah, this was I guess the crazy idea that I really didn't have to do, but I really like the idea of just having a custom theme that you can kind of switch out. So yeah, it's sunny, night, and luchador. Luchador is just crazy colors. Honestly, it doesn't look that great, but I think I definitely wanted to have like the red, but it didn't. I don't know. In terms of coloring, like the luchador masks kind of made sense with the red and the cyan green. But yeah, that's the coloring. So I guess we can kind of go back to the default sunny theme and kind of see how all of this is made. So within these multiple projects, I also kind of did this sleek navigation. If you can kind of focus on the edges, you can kind of see that I also made, like above everything, another layer which is the same color. So it looked kind of weird if when it comes into the main frame and it was just, you know, kind of a straight line. I don't know. I like the idea of just having different shapes, so when it actually pops in and out, it looks just a little bit more interesting. Pagination, this obviously also kind of works if you want to click on it, but definitely you can just use the the arrow keys. For each of these kind of cards, I also wanted to try and like a book cover or something like that. I definitely wanted to hopefully present what this app is about within these kind of hover animations. So like for polymorph, it's probably gonna make sense when we go through that. But yeah, for each of these, I definitely wanted to kind of do something that makes sense for set project essentially. So if we go into a project, so you can kind of see in terms of animation, I guess we can go kind of full screen. Maybe I can do 100%. So this is just the move out, I think, transition. But again, if you check the box for animate matching layers, you could do things like, so you can see the navigation bar moving diagonally out. You can see the title kind of moving away, my head as well. So like all of these go in their own kind of direction, but everything else just moves down. And then you can kind of see the keybinds, they just move slightly into their next position. So this was very fun, and it definitely took a while to kind of figure out how to animate all of these elements, and like even the back yellow blobs, like how they kind of hide behind the main base, and then the main base expands and turns into a color that is relative for each project. So like yeah, definitely a lot of work went into this. You can definitely scroll through all of these projects. You can kind of go back to top. I made this little animation that can indicate that you can actually kind of scroll through all of this. Since it's a Figma prototype, you can definitely click and drag as well, which is also sort of nice. Here I also made, if you click on this, you can see the entire kind of case study. It's like 50-minute long, where I talk about the entire project, because for Tallywell it definitely took a while. It was like a year or something project in total. So yeah, you can definitely watch that. I think there's definitely something to be said about this whole project and kind of the things that we made for the Apple Watch. But yeah, besides the video case study, there's obviously text that kind of guides you through all of these little segments. But what I also kind of wanted to do is, since I can kind of continue with this prototyping part of everything that I kind of did, why not just have links for said prototypes, right? So like if I'm talking about a certain thing, you can just click on it and you can actually see the prototype. So like in this case, you can see again within Figma how I just animated quickly, like the gauge moving, all the waves filling up, and like the number shifting. And this was really good, like for clients, for developers, for everyone, to just kind of showcase, hey, this could look in this type of way, right? So main takeaway is it takes, I don't know, like half an hour maybe max to like not even half an hour, like it maybe even took, I don't know, like 15 to 20 minutes to like create all of this, when you actually have all of the assets and stuff like that. Like the gauge actually filling up is just a big rounded, no, it's not even rounded, it's just a big frame that I just rotate. And I think in the case study I kind of showcase how certain things were done there. But yeah, essentially I really wanted to have, when you actually click on each prototype, that you can actually just kind of go through all the things that I actually kind of made and prototype within Figma, and then you can kind of see all of these little bits. So like still we are within Figma, like, but obviously just to, I guess, kind of flex some of my prototyping that I actually did for all of these projects. Not all of these projects, but yeah, the majority of them definitely had their own types of prototypes and stuff like that. So in this case. Like there's an entire flow that you can kind of go through and navigate and do all these little bits and stuff like that. Something happens, you can click on it, etc, etc. So that's generally the case for each of these projects, where you can also kind of go to the link of the actual client or company or whatever it is. And yeah, that's kind of the idea for each of these. So obviously I'm not gonna go through each of these. Yeah, the animations and stuff like that, like all of these kind of exist and stuff like that. This is also done within Figma, so it's not an animation, it's not a GIF or something similar. But yeah, just trying to kind of flex the possibilities of the prototyping and things that you can kind of do with everything. Like even here, if it's just, you know, like a gallery of icons that I kind of did, when you hover over, it just zooms in. It's simple, it's small, it's not like, you know, like crazy or anything, but when you combine all of these little bits and when you can just kind of, I don't know, change the theme or something like that, I think if a recruitment company is looking at this, if a client is looking at this, you know, like anyone that wants to hire you, I think if you can kind of do that extra mile of just trying to present yourself in the best possible light, I don't think these things, you know, like hurt to be made or to kind of exist. Oh yeah, so this, for example, is actually done through an overlay. But if you can kind of see this kind of cover transition, I figured out a way how to do that, but it's an overlay. So essentially, wherever this the whole navigation is its own kind of component, and wherever this button is, it's always going to do the same thing. And what's cool, because everything is its own color in terms of like the prototyping, the prototype background and stuff like that. I'll definitely showcase that. All of this makes sense and it fills perfectly. And what's good in terms of like fill screen, so like the main issue that I had is which frame size would make sense to kind of go with, right? Like, should I do just standard 16:9 or something like that? But what if someone's looking at a different type of screen, if it's a laptop, if it's a tablet, you know, like there's a lot of different ways to view this. Also, if I do something at 100, if I present everything within this prototype at 100%, the actual kind of size of the frame is like 1800 and 920, right? So like, what if someone has a 4K display, right? Like what if what if the resolutions are kind of different? This is where you have the option to kind of fill screen, and it's going to fill the entire screen. So this was good for larger resolutions and different displays. Why I went with this type of resolution, I don't know. In terms of, I just wanted to fit everything nicely, so like even 1080p or something like that, in terms of like aspect ratio and stuff like that, it's all going to fit nicely. But yeah, this is obviously just made for like the desktop version. I mean, you could do landscape on your phone or something like that. I mean, phones are definitely more big, so you can still kind of navigate through that, but I obviously wouldn't recommend. It's not the main kind of the device that I envisioned. I mean, this whole thing took too long to kind of make. So yeah, maybe down the line I'll make a mobile version as well. I mean, it could make sense to make a mobile version as well, but yeah, we'll see if that is even needed, essentially. But yeah, for the actual kind of about page, this is just all the things that I kind of did all the way back in 2005. yeah, I guess essentially, yeah, now that I kind of bottled it all down, this is kind of it, right? Like this is the main thing that I worked on. So I guess we can kind of move into the actual files themselves. So theming I did through different pages. Prototype background definitely has to match the actual kind of background. So like even if we obviously kind of go through this thing, if I change it, right, like you can definitely see that this is the edge of the frame. So using a simple, obviously, color was the only solution that I kind of had. I could have made the actual frame, so like, let's say that maybe if I kind of did the this whole kind of base, maybe that could have been like the actual frame that I wanted to have everything. That's also a possibility, like why not? But I definitely wanted to have, you know, like fluff or just visual things around. So I didn't want to make that compromise, and if that makes sense. So I definitely wanted to have room for all these little bits, like even the head and stuff like that. The nav bar or these controllers kind of sticking out, and these blobs kind of sticking out. The blobs are actually things that are coming out of my head, which is kind of the play on the head that has this hole in its scalp. But yeah, so I guess we can kind of start with I guess I can go through these pages, and then we can kind of go through some of the components and how certain things were kind of made. So yeah, for the head, so essentially I have like a vector, like all of this is done within Figma, so like all of these vectors and stuff like that are actually here. If I just wanted to change like the color for this head, I would export this as a PNG, and then I would go into this main component and just edit the image, and the animated frames essentially would then be, so like in the next one is mouse moves inside. This has like a smart animate, it's bouncy. Then after this one, this is while pressing, and that's how you kind of get this effect. So like hover, or not hover, mouse moves inside. If I click on it, it kind of goes back, so you can kind of move it back and forth, and if it goes out, it comes back to the default position. So that's how I did the head. And again, if I wanted to change any of the colors and stuff like that, I would essentially just change the variable color, or even color styles. Like in this case, it doesn't really matter. Kind of a confession, like I haven't really used the variables like that much within all of these things. Like I'm still trying to figure out like what are the benefits to variables versus like styles and stuff like that. Like I'm sure there are, but I just haven't figured out how to put them within my kind of pipeline, or how I do certain things, or how I change certain things. But yeah, hopefully I'll do more digging and kind of see if there's something more interesting to be done with said variables. But like I said, you can use styles or whatever, it doesn't matter. You can just select the entire like section or group or whatever, and just find within the selected colors whatever is here. You can just easily switch. So theming was essentially really not difficult. It was just tedious to kind of go through all of these little bits and change all of these colors and kind of mix and match. But obviously when you set everything up in terms of each variable, like, hey, this is yellow, this is blue, even if I have to like do, you know, kind of global changes to any of these colors, obviously wherever it's red, you're going to change the color. So like that's always good, and it's always beneficial to kind of do things like that. Here for these controllers, like at one point I was experimenting too much, and essentially now that I look at it, I probably wouldn't do things like this. I would definitely do them in a bit different way now that I kind of think about it, but I was really testing like a lot of different things and stuff like that, like from really just using component sets. Oh yeah, so yeah, component sets are definitely the thing that I liked what I could do with component sets by default versus just having things as a component. So let's close these. Let's say, so we have this one page. Let's just make whatever something. So this is a component. If I duplicate this, escape, delete, this is still a component set. What I would do is just add auto layout if I need, I don't know, more control over anything. And let's say, whatever, this can be something like this, blah, blah, blah. Maybe change the color. And what would make sense? Maybe I can duplicate this. I can make this into an instance, and then we can call this just a component set. So in terms of like theming, or if you want to, maybe you make this entire thing in one page and you want to duplicate that page. If you just use components, it's always just going to make an instance. But if we like duplicate this page now, obviously just a component is now an instance, but the component set now duplicates to a different page. So in terms of assets, we now have two different component sets, which is really, really cool. So now, whatever this component set is tied into all of these pages that I actually kind of made. So I don't know, like all of these headers, all of the coloring, everything, all the buttons, everything that is made. If it's component set, I can just duplicate it in a different page, and all of the editing is very, very much easy, because I don't have to then go inside of each of these frames with all these different buttons and stuff like that and manually change to a different page. So yeah, I just, by default now, how I would do things is just make a component set. With that in mind as well, so here obviously we just have the different pages that we kind of need. I could always maybe have like, so obviously this is definitely project dependent, right? In this case, it's not that kind of important, I would say. But like, if you're obviously doing something where you want to have a kind of a default component set, if it's a design system, if it's, you know, like something in that regard, yeah, I guess it would still make sense just to have this one thing or just one page where you have all of these kind of components and stuff like that. But I mean, at the same time, if you want to have, I mean, you can still have it as a component set, right? Like it doesn't necessarily matter. If you want to do like theming or stuff like that, yeah, I would still recommend just to have everything as a component set. You can just duplicate the page, you can change all the colors, and then you have you're not working over anything that you kind of did. So to me, it really just makes sense to play with that. Also, what I definitely like about component sets is I can actually adjust the background if I'm going through the asset page. So like, for example, if I change the fill here, like look here, it actually changes. So for example, if I have like different icons or certain things like that, I can literally change the background for that component set, and here I can actually have a different background in the assets panel, which is really, really cool. I wasn't aware of this before, but now now that I kind of know that I can do certain things with this, I could have color-coded things and just have glanceable information. Okay, I'm gonna use green or blue or something like that for anything that makes sense. It doesn't affect the actual component itself, like everything that's inside, obviously, because if that was the case, that means in the about part, right, like all of that would change, but it doesn't. So it's only in regards to the app and how the assets panel kind of reads that background essentially. So that's really cool about component sets, which I definitely like. Yeah, plenty of things to to kind of talk about. Where was I? Maybe, okay, so I was talking about the controllers. Yeah, maybe just go through some of the general bits. Again, none of this is like too difficult to understand when you kind of see it. Like in terms of the prototyping, all of these have either like from one state to another, it's like after delay, so you just figure out when you want something to happen, and then from the second frame it can just be again after delay, and it just moves back to the first one. So in this way you can just get loopable animations. In this case, for like the scrolling and stuff like that, this really made sense to just make it like that. All of the arrows, etc., it's just from one frame to the next one. If you're hovering, it's just going to change the scale and the size. Nothing fancy, but just it definitely looks cool when you actually kind of hover over certain things. Again, with like the component sets, it made sense, at least for me personally, to switch. Like here, I'm thinking essentially, if it's a button or something like that, I usually see people trying to push within like all the variants. People are trying to push even color, even this, even this, even this. And that's usually in my sense, like that's probably too many things. What made sense, at least for me, how I kind of work on things, is to, if I have just this one color, it's going to be its own component set. If I want to just duplicate this button and just make a new one, I can just do that. And with these lashes, this is an easy way to kind of go through, like, okay, so general, can find all of the buttons, the default ones, dark and white, for example. Since this is dark, I can definitely like change the color, and I can very easily see in the asset panel like what's actually happening. So in terms of like using assets that you're actually creating, using multiple component sets doesn't really seem like that, I don't know, kind of a tricky thing to do. If I have something and I want to change it, you can just navigate through these folders that you essentially made. So like / is always going to make a new folder. So like button, default, dark. If I had button, I don't know, maybe even I would do something like for an icon, though an icon could still be an instance, I guess. So like it doesn't, yeah, well, I guess I would still put it as an instance. But yeah, in terms of like color, fill, I don't know, you have a button that is just strokes, why not make it a component set of its own, right? Like don't, in my experience, it made more sense to just split these into like larger or smaller component sets than just have this one button huge thing and then a million variables that you can kind of navigate. In my mind, this kind of made more sense in terms of organization, but yeah, that's obviously dependent on the person, the team, and stuff like that. For icons, I don't know. The only thing that made sense, at least in my case, on how to always have functioning hover states, functioning color changes and stuff like that, is to just have each and every icon as its own component. So not like icon / variable, but like just every component, and it's just within a group frame. It doesn't matter. You're still going to read it and see it as as icons essentially. So like this is icons, right? So like all of these are here. I did back in back in the day, I guess I did start with like making it just an icon component and then inside through all the variables. But when you play around more and more with like the prototyping and stuff like that, it made just more sense to have each and every icon to be a component on its own. This is probably the only thing that when you kind of duplicate it, it's, I mean, you just duplicate an instance, but like in this case, I could literally just, you know, delete this because it doesn't really matter. It's still going to push everything from this same space. So like this is good because I can obviously kind of showcase that it's totally fine to change these colors. This is just OCD, don't mind me doing this. Yeah. So yeah, icons. For this visual, again, component set, because again, I really wanted to change the colors easily, and so I don't have to edit each and every instance that is already in all of these frames. So like in all of these frames, like even in these frames, like for the actual project page, the blobs are still there, but they're just hidden behind. So I'll get to that part in a second. Yeah, this is the main component, like for the back blobs, and essentially I'm just scaling it up and down. This is for the fade that I kind of mentioned, where you have this, so it's just over everything, but you get that illusion of making it of these transitions where you have this kind of a fun cutout where you actually kind of, when you navigate, if you focus on the edges on the left and right, you get this, or sorry, yeah, on this part you get this interesting transition, I would say. Yeah, I guess we can kind of go here, then I'll go back to like the cards and the about section. Hopefully this won't take too long to kind of go through, but yeah, I mean, like I said, it took 3, maybe even 4 months to kind of do all of this. Obviously, if I knew everything how I wanted to make it from the start, it would definitely not last as long. But yeah, it was definitely a lot of like trial and error and stuff like that. So yeah, for like the blob back, whatever is in this frame, and then if I go to like any of these kind of project frames, I would still have the same name for that blob back, and it's just in a different position in this frame, and that's how you essentially kind of get, if we go inside. So if you focus on just the yellow blobs, you can see them kind of going inside. But if we see what the actual so it's not just smart animate, it's actually move out, but we checked animate matching layers with the same name instead of using the transition above. So that's really cool, because whatever is not the same name, it's going to have the move out transition. But obviously everything that has the same name, you can kind of hide certain things and just make more interesting transitions. So I was talking about the kind of the blobs and whatnot. In terms of the animation, this is just move out. And if we check animate layers with the same name instead of using the transition above, essentially you get all of these interesting transitions that you probably normally couldn't really do with just smart animate. Or if it did smart animate, you would then have to move each and every object. But in this case, I can just tweak certain frames that have the same name, and then all of the rest are just going to push or move or whatever transition makes sense that I want to do at that given time. Kind of the same thing for each of these individual frames. So like this is all in the same category projects that I worked on. And this is just a so like just cards, you know, like nothing special. It just has to have the same name as the next frame, or in this case it's cards 2. So like I go cards 1, cards 2, and then that move out animation or push animation in this case makes that kind of transition that I want, which is cool. And yeah, like I kind of mentioned, all of these about or themes are just essentially overlays, and it's the same thing for the about. So like all this is centered. I just had the background, which is the same color as the actual kind of prototype background and the frame background, just slider opacity. Close when clicking that side obviously doesn't work in this case, since the entirety of the frame is the overlay. But yeah, I guess I can kind of go through how I did the about part. So the actual overlay here is this one. So this is the overlay, and you can kind of see nothing is here, but we have a close button, and we have everything that is actually filling. So this about fill is actually these two components where we have nothing. So all of this is not present within this frame. So like this fill blob, you can kind of see it here outlined. And in the next frame, it's just going to essentially scale up over everything. And that's how we kind of do this animation. And the close is done in the same way. So like it was very tricky. I didn't really figure out a way of how to kind of hide the close button, because if it's an overlay, you can't add, like I can't have a button here somewhere that can close the overlay. So it still has to be within this frame, which is the overlay itself. So then what kind of made sense, okay, I'll do the same thing. I'll just make something that there's nothing here. The button is just above, and then it moves down automatically after a delay, which is the same thing that I kind of did with this. After delay, just 1 millisecond. So as soon as it starts, it's going to play, but it loads nothing because the actual animation here for the overlay is instant. So as soon as you click, the component for the actual kind of fill loads up, it does the animation, close does its own thing, and that's how you get this effect, which is really cool, because this is something that could be done for, you know, actual projects and stuff like that. You could make custom transitions in this way, which is I think kind of interesting to see. And yeah, this is still interactive and clickable, right? So like whatever you have, if it's something scrollable, even if it's clickable, I mean, you can still interact with it, but like I can't close the overlay or something like that, but I can still interact within just this component that I have. So like in this case, whatever is here, obviously I can make buttons, and then I would just have to make new, you know, like another thing that happens when you click at it and stuff like that. But if I want everything to close, I still need to have that button within this main frame, which, if you can see, everything is actually linked to. So like in this header, this is the main component for the header in the main menu, and wherever this button is, because I linked just this, and obviously wherever else it actually exists, whenever you click on it, it's going to be an overlay. that opens up, which is definitely cool. I definitely want to kind of experiment with more transitions. I think there's a lot of things that you can do because you're kind of limited with the actual transitions, if I'm honest. Like, you have dissolve, you have move in, right? Like, you can't do smart animate, you can't do anything else, but this kind of made sense on how to mitigate that and do my own things within just the same overlay thing. Here it's just a scrollable text thing, like nothing special. But yeah, I just outlined all of the places that I worked and what I worked there, and that was kind of it. Okay, so with the cards, first I kind of wanted to have a different grid where I had these kind of smaller square cards, and I wanted to have, I think, 6 per page, but the prototype became super laggy, which was kind of eh. It looked really good because you have a lot of these different projects you can kind of click and go through at this one page, but it was super laggy and there was nothing to make these individual components, you know, like kind of these are the limitations with the prototyping within Figma. Like, you can do a lot, but at the same time, a lot of that is not gonna be smooth. And if it's not smooth, it's not gonna sell. You're not gonna sell it to someone if it's like not crispy, if it's not when you click on it, it instantly happens, or when you, especially in this case, because obviously you hover over each of these cards, so like each hover animation then becomes super laggy and it doesn't look good. So in terms of the number of these types of cards, what I found out is just to have 3 bigger ones per page, and that essentially solved it. And that's why I kind of did with these. Similar logic, something happens when you actually hover in this case, and also I have like the back cards as well with the same colors, and in the next component I just move them about, and this is how you obviously get the hover animation, which I think are really cool. I also added like a delay, so even if I'm kind of moving fast, it's probably not going to trigger, which is kind of cool. So I didn't want, like, as soon as it comes into the focus, but mouse moves inside. So yeah, there is a little bit of a delay, like 200 milliseconds, which made a lot of sense to kind of do it like that when you're kind of moving the cursor about. And yeah, these are essentially all of the cards that I kind of did for that. Just the main component for all of these individual overlays, but in terms of like each of these pages, obviously what made sense is just to have these somewhere close to these actual kind of controllers. Again, I could have done these controllers like much better, but at one point when you're working, like, I experimented so much. Like, this is just okay, this is the final version, right? But like, you obviously, I didn't really save. Maybe I should have. Maybe that would have been also kind of interesting, but at the same time, who cares? I made so many different versions and stuff like that, and there's not a lot of pages, so I just manually linked everything. So like, if you have difficulty doing certain things, remember that this weird thing within this panel is if you click on the edge, not on like not on the actual thing, you can just copy. So like, if I just need to do and copy it somewhere else, I can do it like that. So whatever you kind of need, it's not that difficult to like manually just copy whatever you kind of made, at least for like overlays or stuff like that. But yeah, for the themes that you can change, obviously if I'm in like the night theme, what would be the point of having the night theme overlay enabled? So like, obviously you just change it depending on the theme. This is like the sunny one, the luchador one, so that was the idea for that. yeah, for these project pages, this is something that I've been doing for a while now, where I always have like the master frame where I know that this is like the thing that this is how it should look, whatever. But like for content and stuff like that, I generally just make a different component. And then within this frame, I can just have this huggable, this main front frame just has a vertical overflow, and that's it. That's how you essentially get the scrolling. And if I move all the way down, I can't go any further. Back to top, essentially for all of these is just from, if we go back, so it's scroll to minus like 100, and that's it. Animate slow, and for all these it's absolutely the same. So when I definitely made like all of these like little things, like, okay, let's figure out a way or a position for all of these individuals. So like header clickable, this is like, you can even see if I click it here, you can see what is actually the, or you can see all of the instances for that component that you actually selected. So like you can kind of see it in this first position, then you can edit the second position, keybinds, same thing, back to top. So yeah, back to top, and like wheel and stuff like that, all of this is actually here. I just hide them. So in this case, back to top is, or is this just behind everything? This is interesting. Oh, no, sorry. The actual component is at 0%. But yeah, essentially, like I said, you just have to kind of navigate through both of these frames. If you want something to show up in the next one, have it in the first frame, but like hide the opacity, for example. Or make, like I showed here, like make a component that has nothing at the start, add a delay, and when it shows up, you can still click on it and you can do certain things with it, which is cool. But yeah, for all of these little things that actually happen within, yeah, the middle and back, these are just the just these kind of stacks that I had. I was thinking of maybe like trying to animate these stacks even further, but like at some point, like there are just diminishing returns. Like you shouldn't animate everything, right? Like even this I would say is overkill, but it looks nice. So that's my defense of why I did it and why you should do it. And also content is actually, I think, yeah, content is here as well, but this is empty, which is interesting. So there's nothing here, but because it's the same name as the other component, which also says content, this is how I kind of figured out how to like, firstly, what was also difficult was trying to figure out how to make the center show up. By when I was first kind of doing this, all of these components would come from like the left or the right, which was like, why is this happening? But then I kind of figured out, okay, I'm gonna have to have within the same frame, which is in like the front is still front. Inside I have content, the scrolls. Here I have content, but the size is the only thing that matters. So like the width in this case, not the height, but like it has to be 1200 pixels. This here has to be 1200 pixels, and that's the only thing that's important. And that's how you can make all of this kind of make sense, and it's always centered. So like if you go back and forth from page to page, you definitely can kind of see how sleek it all actually kind of is. Right. So like, even if I kind of move it down, it's still gonna pop up. I didn't want to make it so it remembers where you kind of are. I don't know. For some reason, it didn't make sense. I thought it would be more interesting or impressive each time that you go. You would kind of go to the hero bit of everything. Plus, all of these things are not like, it's not too difficult to kind of scroll through everything and click on these bits and whatnot. But I guess I can kind of show something like this. Seek was also very cool because I learned how to do certain things like these, where everything is sort of, you know, like this constant clickable way of navigating certain things, or how I can open up certain things and something changes, blah blah blah. So like all of this is constantly clickable. So like I definitely wanted to try and mimic whatever I kind of did for each individual project, and this whole portfolio is essentially that. So you obviously can embed this into your website, etc, etc. It really works well. You can even adjust the bounding box and stuff like that, and then you can kind of, so here for example, like this is the embed. I can do like cornered edges and stuff like that, but this is still an iframe. So like if you want to embed this within your like website or something like that, you can actually do that. The one thing that for some reason I think sometimes happens, so let's say I think sometimes certain links get blocked, and it's difficult to tell when that actually happens. Like if I click on a certain link, yeah, maybe for Figma it's fine, but like I do have outside links sometimes, and it seemed, depending on the browser, so this is also kind of interesting, like maybe on Firefox it doesn't happen, but sometimes it would happen on Brave, sometimes it would happen on Chrome and stuff like that, and I felt, I don't know, it didn't feel kind of too comfortable to kind of do it like this. So for now it's just a tiny URL link, it's just a Figma link for now. Maybe I'll try and push this into its own webpage on my site or something like that. But yeah, I just want to say that it's possible. You can do that, and you can adjust everything to be centered, and like if it's again a bigger resolution or something like that, it's going to scale up because it's an iframe that you can specify height, centering, and stuff like that. So that's kind of interesting. Yeah, this is essentially that. So like depending on the height of everything, the window and stuff like that, you can still edit these little things, which is definitely cool. So yeah, I think that's it. I don't think there's anything else that's really noteworthy. Yeah, maybe I forgot something. That's always going to be like a possibility that I actually forgot something, but in this case, this is what I made. I would very much like if, honestly, Figma could have something that could facilitate these like portfolio things. Like maybe on your like Figma profile you could have like a file that is done like this that could act as your portfolio, right? Like that could be a very perhaps interesting idea of doing things like this, where you can always have this one master file where you want to update new projects and all the things that you actually made. That might be cool if you're working at Figma. Like, yeah, maybe do something like this. That would be pretty cool to maybe have, because like all these functionalities are here. The only thing that would very much like is, like, Jesus Christ, can we have more options here? Like, why why is it only just one color? Why not patterns? Why not gradients? Why not whatever? You know, like I'm sure people would use it in a creative and interesting way. Like, sure, dev mode is fine. I mean, not really, but like it would be cool if we can have just more customization for the prototype kind of viewports of what I actually see in terms of the. I mean, it's still funny that we don't have a way to kind of flex or scale the frame depending on the height or width of the page that it's being displayed on. I mean, that would be really cool for prototyping. Okay, now I'm just gonna rant about things that I didn't want prototypes to have, but yeah, like that could be a video of itself where I maybe do some other tricks that I learned for like prototyping within Figma. But yeah, really, thanks for watching. Hopefully, like I always say, this was educational and you'll learn something new. And yeah, maybe in a year's time I'll make another video. So till next time, thank you for watching.